That's all I've ever done. It's failed.
They can just be poetic and shit and lose our minds together.
It's okay, baby girl. Got you.
So time heals all wounds, I guess.
It wasn't time that did it.
Well, I'm glad that didn't work out.
Me too.
You heard it up top. The fungus is among us once more because we are going back to that post-apocalyptic, terrible time, if you ask me. That's right, because we're talking The Last of Us, HBO's Last of Us here on Normies Like Us. Your hosts, I don't know, Colin the Fun Guy.
Michael Condria. I guess.
And this
Jay
and this is,
Cordyceps.
yeah, Jay Cordyceps.
Yeah, we're a bunch of fun guys, out
Hey,
here.
they
Hey.
got us. We lost, guys. We got infected.
It's all right, but it doesn't matter
Right.
if it's one episode or 2 episodes. We don't quit, and we won't quit on this podcast, and we'll be talking all of season 1 of HBO's The Last of Us. Full spoilers, by the way. So last episode came out Sunday. We'll dive into it, but before that, we'll kind of talk about how we got here and where we've been on this Last of Us journey.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe a little recap.
We did a prior episode
Yeah.
where we were kind of talking about the pilot and the second episode as well. We did a watch it where we talked about it as well. Kind of a known fact. I'm not a game player. You guys have experience with the game. One thing I wanted to ask you as we're watching this thing, have you repicked this game back up at all?
I wanted to. I beat the game once when it first came out, and again, we mentioned that I watched Jacob stream the second one, but I didn't play the second one, but I'm familiar with it. But I haven't picked it up since. I was going to. There's a remaster that either just came out or is coming out soon that I'm sure is going to sell well because of, the success of the show. But if it would have existed on episode 1, I was going to play through at the pace of the show, but I was unable to. But maybe I'll get the remaster. Who knows? Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, I have not revisited the games at all, but I remember them pretty well from when I played them before.
I did do a couple recaps of the story to be like, oh yeah, this is, compare and contrasting the changes. So some of that will get discussed. I'm sure I'll get some of it too.
And you can literally go on YouTube and type Last of Us cutscenes, and you can just watch all the cutscenes cut together in like a 4-hour compilation, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to
Last
get
of Us, the movie.
the story of the games from the cutscenes, you could definitely watch that very easily.
But you know what? Yeah, cutscene wise, the show is actually longer than the game. Like we're just cutting out all the combat sections and the puzzles, but like really, you get more Last of Us from the show than the game cutscene. Sort of it.
Yeah.
Skew the metric.
We're going to talk about it, throughout this episode, but it is interesting talking to people in my life. My dad, just a total, non-video game player, will frequently ask me questions when we're talking about this show. Like, what do you do? Like, so the whole, like, an episode is the 2 gay guys is the game. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's the whole game. There's a piano interactive scene.
Like,
there's a dinner cooking mini game.
They're a nervous first sexual experience.
Yeah.
No.
You have to tap buttons in
Because
time.
you have to, you can explain to people like, oh, this one episode when they're in the mall, that was a DLC.
And literally
Right.
using those words to
They'd be
my
like,
father,
"What's
Jacob, to
DLC?"
say, it's down-level content. What they do now is they make you pay for other parts of games. And for him to say,
It's
like
an
a
expansion
sequel?
pack.
Exactly. But he has no concept. It's fascinating.
It's like, do you want to supersize your meal?
Yes.
Right? Like, do you want to upgrade it?
Oh,
it's not a
no.
new meal. It's just more of the meal. But
Right.
Yes.
it
That's a
is
great way to put it,
fascinating.
Mike.
Like a lot of people I've been talking to, I just right before recording received a text from someone. I was doing yoga at my commune, yesterday. We try to keep wellness up.
Oh yeah, dude.
And someone hadn't seen it. I'm like, yeah, I got to go do some stuff, and I'm gonna watch The Last of Us finale. And like, I haven't watched it at all yet. I'm like, it's incredible. Watch it. Just before we recorded this, they're like, I'm on episode 4. I'm hooked, and I love it. So like, they've never played the game. I'm like, you don't need to. And they're like, this is incredible. So there you go, man. Gamers and non-gamers alike loving season 1. It seems like.
Well, overall, I would say, I may have some takes about game versus show later, or I could get into it now, but maybe I'll save that for towards
we're
the
hitting
end
the
of
plot
how I
points.
feel about the whole show in general.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But-
I might have some takes.
Cool. Well,
Okay.
I think we've got there. You know, we have an intro here. We've explained where we've been, where we're going, and we're gonna dive into The Last of Us. The Fungus Among Us right after this. Let's go. Infected Squad.
We're back. You're a Normies like us talking The Last of Us, HBO's The Last of Us, the adaptation. Neil Druckmann, Craig Mazin. We kind of touched on the origin of it, but let's kind of give a summation of the plot. Let's move through these episodes because,
Mhm.
Jacob, you said you had some criticisms. There's been some criticisms about maybe the pacing of it. I think it would kind of even just help me to spell out what happened in every one of these episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, so
I might not remember episode numbers, but more or less the journey we've been on, I guess,
Right.
is how we're going,
Sure.
right? Because we talked
Right,
episode
well,
1 and
it's-
2, and
We're
Yeah.
introduced to a man named Joel who loses his
Yeah.
daughter in a post-apocalyptic kickoff event, right?
mhm. There's
yeah,
a-
and I would say it's kind of split up by they're traveling across America, so it's split up by location, right? They start out in Boston, go through, they're traveling west, make stops in Kansas City and different places where you have these self-contained kind of episodes or storylines featuring one episode characters, right?
yeah. Season 1 and 2 is really or episode 1 and 2 is like our introduction to Joel and Ellie and the journey. You know, we have Tess obviously in episode 2. You know, she has to make a sacrifice so that they can get away from a bunch of infected. That's kind of our big stuff there. Episode 3, a little bit of background. We learn about Bill, things like that, and we kind of talked about these in our little recap episode. But that's the thrust is you'll have
Resupplies,
these
re-ups.
vignettes. Yep, and then obviously Bill and Frank don't make it, but they do leave some stuff for Joel and
Right.
Journey
And then after that
continues.
is,
We get to his
Kansas
brother.
City.
Yeah, we do Kansas
Well,
City before that. We meet
Yeah,
Sam
Kansas City.
Of course.
and Henry.
Meet the two brothers. That doesn't end well, of course.
We get 2
Basically, they run
episodes of that.
into
Yep.
yeah. Basically, just
Actually, that
run
kind of
into a
works
bunch
out,
of different
actually.
characters that don't make it along the way. Then they end up finally in their brother's commune that he's kind of, which I guess apparently that's Jackson Hole, Wyoming, or it's supposed to be Jackson
Yep.
Hole, Wyoming,
Oh,
which I
sure.
didn't realize at first, but
I'm a
that's
big
great.
fan of Jackson Hole. Just,
Yeah.
24-hour live stream. You can watch their famous intersection with an arch made of antlers. Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
What?
Yeah,
How's
we,
that made?
we used to watch a live stream when
Just
I
a
worked
great
in an
little
office
city.
with no windows. There was a 24-hour live stream of this intersection at Jackson Hole, and we would just throw it on.
That's
So
right.
we pretended to have a
Ah.
window.
It's a great
So it-
small town in Wyoming
Hey.
that you can
Yeah, it's very picturesque. It's
visit.
a mountain
Yeah.
town.
Wow,
But,
it's very
on vacation.
dystopian, guys. I'm
I-
very happy to hear that in an apocalypse-based episode.
Well, Jackson Hole is still wholesome even after all that, So I have a weird
That's right.
affinity
Little
for it,
commune.
unrelated to the show. But yeah, little commune, doing yoga, watching movie night. More of that'll probably be season 2 related, but we'll get there later.
But essentially, Joel and Ellie, at first they're trying to find the Fireflies, right? Then they,
A
have some
group
run-ins.
of
Because she's immune to the whole thing.
revolutionaries against the government to
Yes.
want to exploit this young girl's immunity. She's a quote-unquote cure in this apocalypse that we
Well,
keep.
of course, we find out the reason she's immune is because we flash back in the last
That's a
episode
good point.
to her birth, right? We see her mom, played by Ashley Johnson, the original voice actress of Ellie, and she's giving birth, but she's also been bitten by an infected. So
hmm
she cuts the umbilical cord and everything. So basically, Ellie was born while her mom was infected. So that infected blood mixed with her and made her immune because they think she's I guess the way that they explain it somehow, but basically she's
Yeah,
immune
but
because of that.
there was a limited exposure. She was able to cut the umbilical cord, and somehow it was just the right special sauce to then when Ellie grew up and got bit later with Riley, which was another tragic flashback episode, she's able to survive, and that's what kicks off the whole thing because she doesn't even know she's immune her whole life.
Right.
Until kind of she gets bit. So that's the thing. She's the chosen one. She can save everybody.
So
Joel needs
potentially-
to get her out there.
Yeah, they could make a vaccine from the fungus living inside her and make that a cure for the whole thing, which would be
I
great.
wouldn't take it. I wouldn't take it even if they did make that vaccine. And
No.
you couldn't make me take
You
it.
couldn't make me. Right. It would not
Yeah.
tread on me. But we'll get
Bill
to where
probably
that
wouldn't
goes in the
either.
finale when we get to the end of it. But yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
but they're looking for the Fireflies. They have to cross the country. They have to go west. Then they're like, well, we don't know where they're going to be. Let's just try to find Joel's brother, Tommy. Maybe
Mhm.
he knows where they are because he was a former Firefly.
Yep.
They find Tommy. Then Tommy's like, yeah, they're over here at this hospital or whatever. So then they go in. Well, they go into this university, have a run-in with another group. That is a whole thing.
Joel gets hurt in that scuffle, right? Because the
Joel gets hurt.
Fireflies
Ellie
have
has
left
to-
that
Raiders.
place. Yep.
Yeah. Ellie has to take care of him, try to heal him. She goes out hunting, runs into
A pedophile.
David. Yeah. A pedophile.
Christian pedophile.
Pseudo preacher, or just using
A
religion as a front to be
Christian
an asshole. I don't know if he believes
Hannibal
what he's saying, but
pedophile.
yeah.
Cannibal pedophile cult.
Preacher,
Yeah.
Three
Well, yeah, yeah.
titles that are very hard to be.
a preacher,
Let
cannibal, and
alone one of
pedophile
his,
walk into
yeah.
the bar. They're all named David.
It's like three
it's
groups
one
from
guy.
The Walking Dead that
Yes.
we meet. But yeah, and then James, who is his accomplice, was played, of course, I don't know if you know this, by Troy Baker, the original
Mhm.
voice for Joel. So both Troy
Very
Baker
cool.
and Ashley Johnson have small roles in this, which I thought was really cool.
Another video game, I think, was Troy Baker's in this too. Who's the bearded guy who was in the Kansas City
Oh,
crew?
the voice of Tommy was the
Oh,
The
bearded
voice
guy,
of Tommy.
too.
That's right.
The
So
original
voice
voice of
actor's
Tommy.
getting in here.
And the
Movement,
voice
yeah.
actress of Marlene is the same actress. She's the only one that had the same actress in live action. So there's
Which is great.
a lot of connections to the original voice cast of the game, which
And
is
as
great.
we said, the creators of the game, are involved with this. Working with Craig Mazin,
Yes.
and Neil Druckmann is, Last of
That's
Us
right.
dude. So obviously, I think in summary, before we go to all the finale, I mean, this has to be like the best video game adaptation because of that. And we're getting a lot of
Yeah.
Easter eggs and throwbacks and things from the game, scenes taken directly. Some stuff's changed, this and that, but it's really strong. And as I said, even non-fans of the game have loved it. And
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say because, again, to compare it to something like Sonic or Mario, where you're taking all of the Mario canon or lore and like trying to make a story out of it, whereas this is adapting a very direct adaptation of the story of this one game. I don't really think that's been ever done before with video game adaptations, where like we're gonna basically directly adapt these
With general
cutscenes
plot
from the
points.
game.
yeah,
Like
Well,
Assassin's Creed movie, they
yeah.
didn't do that. It's like everything, they always try to take the branding and then like make
Yeah.
their own story. Halo, the TV show, did this.
Yep.
And it's
But
like,
Jacob,
yeah.
that's such a great point about video games, that what makes video games so special is the spectacle, the visuals, and the experience, and that they're not often highlighted for their story or storytelling. And that to take this game for people to say, no, that's the thing we're not touching, that's pretty remarkable.
yeah.
Of
yeah,
course,
that's
this game
true.
was sort of known for its story. Like that's kind of one of its big pros is like, oh, it's got a great story set in the zombie apocalypse. The action of the game, like the gameplay is fine. It's not like the greatest zombie gameplay ever made, but it's
Yeah.
good enough, and the story kind of
Can't imagine.
helps.
I was talking to a friend in Discord about The Last of Us games gameplay wise. He's like, don't you like want to play those again? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like the stories are great. The story's really good, but there's only so
Yeah.
much pushing of boxes and climbing of ladders that I can do.
Hey,
And that's what a lot of it
So-
is, besides the combat. But the story is great.
Mike, that is so funny that you say that. I wanted to ask you guys a question like this, since again, I have never played the game before.
Yeah.
Does it ever feel like and I was thinking about this in the last episode when he's got this great line where he's like, we'll take dynamite, we'll blow up this rebel, you'll crawl through here. He's setting up this like fun little thing,
Yeah,
which
you
I'm
get this
sure
little
is
reference
more
stuff.
in line
It's like
with
a
the
reference. to
Boosting
the
her up to
game.
get the
Great.
ladder is gameplay.
Obviously,
That's literally what you do in the
But-
game.
Yeah.
obviously they're not going to be able to do that as much, quote unquote, in the show.
No,
but
no.
is the gameplay in The Last of Us, is it kind of akin to Resident Evil 4 with the president's daughter, where you have that annoying relationship of sending her to do things?
Sometimes you do have to send her to do
Sometimes.
stuff, and she can't swim, so you have to float boxes over to her and stuff. There's
Oh.
like little things like
But
that.
it's like little puzzle, like little platforming puzzles you have to solve sometimes.
In between
Okay.
combat to buy some time, and you have dialogue
Yeah.
building the relationship. You learn about them, like you learn that
Maybe
she
this
can't
is-
swim in
That's
those moments,
interesting.
so-
Maybe this is a good time that I can give my take about game versus
Please.
show.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
and this goes into the ultimately the pacing of the show too, which I thought,
Mhm.
and I think it's a really good show in a lot of ways. But I think the one thing it's lacking from the game, and maybe this is the opposite of what you were saying, Mike, but I
Hmm.
feel like to cut out basically it's all the cutscenes with the gameplay cut out, right? But
Yep.
to cut out so much of the action, the bonding between Joel and Ellie, the character development of them going through these different levels, having to solve these little puzzles and stuff, I feel like you are missing something from the game. And I think the game might be the superior medium in which to tell this story because of that
Oh,
reason.
I am fully on the opposite side of that, but I respect where you're coming from.
Wow.
Because, well, here's the thing with a 9-episode season, you're telling the
Yeah.
entire story of the game. It did feel for me a little rush towards the end, where they're really rushing the conclusion of this whole thing in
Yeah.
the last 3 episodes, where it's like, the whole David and James encounter that could have been stretched out a little bit. I know, like Craig Mazin and,
Yeah.
and Neil Druckmann has said, like they wanted as little filler or like anything that wasn't necessary to the core plot in it. But at the same time, I feel like if you let it breathe a little more, 9
Yeah.
episodes does feel like too short of a season. You could have stretched it out, let it breathe a little bit, let those characters bond over time. I feel like that would have actually added something to the show.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. I agree that the last, again, I love the finale overall. It's a good, solid show, but we could have had 10 episodes, and the final episode is 43 minutes. It's the shortest episode, and I think you could have done
Yeah.
2 episodes with David, because that's one of my favorite parts of the game is when you're surviving just as
Right.
Ellie. Like, Joel's out of the picture now, and you're playing as her, having to fight
Wow.
adults, and you have a
Just
bow
gotta
and
kill
arrow.
a
Like,
lot
that's
more
really
people than
intense.
they do in
You
the
get
show,
to kill
right?
David.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that is
And-
better. Yeah, but we needed at least 10 episodes, and the last one could
10
have been
episodes,
longer.
I
I
could,
agree.
yeah, I say you could have even stretched the story to be 2 full seasons or something like that, because really just let the characters breathe. And maybe it was for budget reasons or something that they didn't want to do that, or maybe they just wanted to focus on this core story. But it feels like cut down so much that it's really just the core bones of the story, but it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like if you look at something like Walking Dead or something, they longer seasons. You
But
could say
how
it's
is that
a
held up
show,
in the
but
annals
yeah,
of time, right? In history.
Right.
Right.
It's mid.
but I needed more. I still
But
wanted
as a-
more action in the show. I wanted more zombie.
Yes,
fight.
yeah. Well,
As
follow
a
up that, Colin.
non-player, it felt short. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, 100% agree. How many cordyceps guys did we see? Truly, the big
Yeah.
full guys. How many of those guys did
Really
we see this whole
biggest-
show? 2?
Two.
The biggest action scene was that Kansas City, the end of the Kansas City arc, where you see the bloater and you see the big swarm.
Yes.
Yep.
And then you had the first encounter with the clickers. But other than that, it's like very sparse that you
Clickers.
actually,
Thank you.
see the infected.
I've heard that criticism too, and I agree. The one thing for me that's lacking from the game, it's not the length, or like not playing through let me crawl through a crawl space, but there are not enough cordyceps infected in this.
Yeah.
For sure. Like
Well, I don't
3,
think you need
4 encounters, really?
Yeah. You don't need the waves of enemies that
If
you have
that.
like in the game, or like,
Mhm.
Ellie having to kill 30 different guards and stuff as she escapes the compound. But
Right.
it could have been a little more than we got in the game in the show. And maybe that's again due to budgetary reasons. They could only afford so much, and they wanted to focus their budget on the really important moments, which I understand. But yeah, it could have
Everything
been
they spent their
longer.
time on was
Yeah.
the key character moments. Henry and Sam. They added Bill and Frank extended stuff. We get the
Right, I like that
DLC
stuff a
with
lot.
Riley.
Yeah.
And they're focusing on
Yeah.
that each episode, but there's not a breather. Every episode is a big character thing. I can hear you there.
Yeah.
But if people haven't experienced the game at all, they don't miss it. But I understand that. Yeah, maybe
Right.
a little
And I
bit
think
more.
Well-
action.
originally it was going to be 10
Yeah.
episodes that they kind of, in editing, realized that they were only going to make 9 episodes.
Or they're like, man,
Oh,
these sets
that's
are so
interesting.
expensive. That's interesting that they just cut it shorter.
Yeah.
I want to talk to the finale directly for a second.
Yep.
And say this is maybe the one time where I don't agree with you, Jacob, because I'm totally with you the whole series. I'm like, where's the action for this thing? Where's the action for this thing? And
Mhm.
you almost wonder if that's on purpose, because this show's finale is so incredibly effective at making violence seem so unappealing and not glorifying gun violence that when Joel kills the 2 guards who are escorting him out of the hospital, and the one guy falls on the stairs, and you get a bird's eye overhead down on that guy as Joel has to take his backpack back, and we hold on the young man's dead face that he shot in the head for 30
Mhm.
seconds. I mean, an entire scene, a whole beat.
Yep.
It is so upsetting. And then we go into this entire massacre of a man with a machine gun shooting innocent people in the hospital to foil. I mean, let's talk about it. Like, ultimately, what this show is about, to foil the savior of humanity, I guess, if you take the finale
Potentially,
that way. And do you guys rate it that way? Yeah.
Well, I think, yeah, that's kind of the whole point, is that Joel is making the wrong choice for the, like the great Spock said,
Mhm.
the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Of
And Joel is
We
course.
love
essentially
it.
saying, my new daughter relationship with this young girl that I've adopted is more important to me than finding a cure that
What?
would save
For-
the
You're
whole world.
you're gonna
Mhm.
do what? I started calling her baby girl yesterday. You're not gonna hurt my baby
I'm going to
girl.
teach her how to play
Yeah.
It's like,
guitar. Yeah, no,
huh?
but and so the conflict in this is, they find the fireflies, and then it turns out, as we realize from the early explainings, that the cordyceps grow in your brain. So when they need to make a cure, they need to cut her brain open, extract
Yeah.
the cordyceps, and she's going to die.
She's
So
not going to
Joel
survive
makes
the
that
procedure.
decision. And
Which
Colin,
it's kind of funny that he didn't realize that earlier in the journey. Like, he only
Right, in
realized that at
hindsight,
the end.
yes.
But
But to speak to this violence thing, like, you're right. You're not
Yes.
supposed to root for Joel here. Like, really. And they elevate it. There's people with guns, and then he kills them mercilessly. And then there's a guy with a gun who puts it down and says, hey, yo, and he still
Yeah.
kills him. Then
he's
unarmed
killing way more
people.
people than he
And he
needs to.
kills a doctor who might be like the only brain surgeon left in society. You know what I mean?
At
It's
least
like,
he didn't kill those two nurses that were in the
right.
room.
But
too,
increasingly
right?
When he
defenseless
told them to
people.
turn around, I was like, oh no, he doesn't want to look at them when he does
Right.
it. Oh
Yeah.
no.
But
But
yeah,
that's
and
Joel's whole
that's
thing, is that he, to survive in this world, you got to kill people. You can't just maim them and leave them, like, or even if they're surrendering, like, you just got to
Well,
kill
they're
them.
going to look for you. But maybe
He's-
these
yeah,
nurses won't.
He's thinking about how Ellie said before they went in, there's no half measures. We have to see this thing all the way through. And he knows he
Yeah.
has to see through protecting her. The
Even
only way
killing
he can.
Marlene,
Yeah, when
it's
it
like a
comes to
whole thing.
Marlene, it's like, she's even like, all right, please just don't kill me. Like, I'm not going to do anything. He's
Why?
like, well, you'll just come after me. So you just come after her.
Yep.
And
So
then
that-
he has to
You
lie
won't
to Ellie, of
stop.
course. And that's the big moment. And this is
Yeah.
really works really well in the game too, I think, where it cuts and they're back in a car driving, and she wakes up. She's like, what happened?
Yep.
And I think it just ends in that car scene. You don't have the epilogue of the show where they
There is
The
the
hype.
conversation, I believe you. You know,
Yeah.
like that dialogue happens. And also in the
Yeah.
game, you make the
Wow.
choice. You can leave the hospital. I
Yeah.
believe, right? Like, you cannot
But you
massacre
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah, but you can't
Oh,
finish
really?
the game that way, I don't think, right? You have to
Oh.
That's
play
like
the story of the game.
it might give you a shitty game over. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, like,
Yeah.
I think there's a moment
my
where it's like,
God.
you want to massacre or not, you have to get the proper
my God.
story. But it's
Well, I think
like,
that's a big part of
huh.
the second game too, where it's like
well, this is a little bit of
it takes
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
There
gonna
might be
say
a light
anything
spoiler for
specific,
the
but
second
it
game if you haven't played it. But go ahead.
it takes player choice out of the equation to where you're playing the story of these characters, so you have to do what the characters are doing. So it forces
Right.
you to
Mhm.
kill people even though you may not want to. That's kind of the overall theme of these games, is that, obviously revenge. In the end, no one wins. Like, it just ends it with more unnecessary killing, and those consequences have consequences, and just spirals into this whole cycle, right? And that really starts with this last episode, as we'll come to find out
This
in season
moment.
2 in certain ways.
Mhm.
Joel killing the people in this hospital will have ramifications in the future.
And yeah, he lies when she wakes up in the car, with to underline. They said they couldn't find a
100%.
cure. Yeah, Colin. I mean, how do you feel about that whole? I mean, because I
Well,
knew that
and-
conversation's coming, so you're fresh.
And just because Jacob said spoilers, let's continue on here. And I'm saying even spoilers moving on to the second game, but I'm not truly saying anything. But
Yeah.
just to say that I had said when we did our first episode that the only thing I had ever seen of Last of Us was the last scene of it, because I called it a very famous last scene, and you guys all agreed. I'm going to reveal now that the reason that I watched that was because we were all going to watch Jacob play on Twitch.
Sure.
And we all kind of knew that the second game followed the ramifications of the first. I thought, I'll see what the last scene of the first one is.
Mhm.
And again, even in the game, to what I think again they're capturing this making violence look so hideous and so ugly. When you are playing this simulator of walking through a hospital, killing innocent people, right? The last
Yeah.
scene of this game,
Mm-hmm.
I was horrified. And
Yeah.
knowing that it was coming this time, Mike, I was equally horrified.
Yeah.
And I thought it did an incredible job of capturing that.
Yeah, and they say it from
Yeah.
the beginning, like Joel says, we're not good people. Like he's making the selfish choice for him because he finally has this new daughter and he's finally opened up for the first time in 20 years and allowed himself to have this relationship. So the last thing in the world that he would do is give that up now. And so it makes sense
Yes.
for that character in the moment. But I still think objectively it's the wrong decision. And
Yes, of
he's
course.
clearly biased. But
I mean, it's the old, train tracks. There's 10 people on the right side, one person on the left, which you pull the lever to save the 10, right? And
Right.
he pulled the lever and killed the 10.
And like you're saying,
yeah.
we don't
It's a
know for
selfish
sure that
choice.
this vaccine would work. We don't know this procedure would work.
No.
Like it's all,
Speculative.
no one knows for sure. So
Now-
yeah.
I saw a very interesting comment on the Last of Us subreddit. I'll shout them out
Mhm.
real quick to rate the Reddit. Seems like a very bad Reddit. It's not the one that hates women and the second game, so I'll
Right,
give
right.
it that thumbs up.
Sure.
They're in a
But,
particular corner.
Truly, they pointed out that the issue with the entire question is it's neither of their question to answer, and they do bring this up in this episode.
Mhm.
Marlene says, "What would Ellie want?" It's not for us to decide. And
Right.
this Redditor also commented saying, and I think this is perfect, that the issue is they are both two people who would not accept her answer either way. Marlene would not accept no. Joel would not accept yes. And that is
Yeah.
what
The
makes
thing
them
is,
dangerous dynamic forces.
yeah. And I think Ellie would say yes ultimately.
I
and
think she
Joel
would
not
too.
accept that.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
And
he even says like I would
giving
not
her the
allow to.
choice
Yeah.
is the ultimate evil that he pulls off, even let alone the lying at the end, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Neither of them gave her the choice. I agree with Jacob. She would have probably agreed. But yeah,
Yes.
neither adult figure gave her agency in her own life, which, that's
It's
a metaphor
horrible.
in of itself. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
And
And it's interesting to look at like the Fireflies versus Fedra, two groups that like think they're doing the right thing, and like the Fireflies are like, no, we're like fighting, we're freedom fighters and stuff, but they're also doing things that are ethically or morally wrong, right?
Yeah,
it's
By
like a
forcing
metaphor
child-
Fedra are
individuals
warlords
too.
Yeah.
Well, look
Yeah.
at Joel, right?
Yes.
He's not good either, but he's doing things
Right.
that he thinks are the right way. Same thing with Fedra, and maybe nobody knows what they're doing, kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
And the ultimate thing that he would push back with, because she is right, Marlene says, what would she want? And he doesn't answer this way, but in his mind he thinks, but she's a little girl. She can't make the right choice because she doesn't have the
That's true,
experience,
too.
agency, whatever you would call it. And again, that's a wrong thing for a guy to choose over a young lady, of course. But,
Right.
what do you say to a young person? I don't want my
She's
brain
a
pulled out,
minor.
Jacob. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't
know.
She's not even 18, so you could say, well,
No.
in the world that we live in, we don't allow minors to make a lot of decisions that are like important on that scale. Like you wouldn't, allow a child to do assisted, medically assisted suicide or something like that, right?
No.
Because they don't have
She's
a matured brain.
Teen.
Right.
She's 14. How old is she?
I'm not sure.
I think
exactly.
14.
I mean, come on. That's
But yeah,
that's
I'm not.
young.
Yeah, and she's lived a hard life. I mean, she's experienced loss and all that. Like, she's had to mature at an accelerated rate, but still, it's not a choice
Yeah.
we would ask children in our world to have agency over. But the fact that he didn't ask, how do you feel?
Yes.
That's rude on a
It's all
human
bad.
point of view. Yeah. So, it's a crushing end scene because you don't even know if she believes him when he says, like, yeah, everything I told you was true. And he's lying. She might know. I don't know. But like, it's like, I guess this is it now. We're just bought
I
into
think
this
she is,
relationship.
like-
You and I, this is it now. We're buddies. And
Yeah.
fuck it. We're stuck here.
I think she's suspicious.
I'm going
but
wherever you're going.
just
Yeah.
choosing to sort of ignore what that could mean if he was lying.
Because she, she's been alone too. And now they have a connection, father-daughter dynamic. So it's like, yeah, he might have said yes, but he did something. All they can do is move forward with it. And, I guess could have worse company, so it's an
Well-
interesting friction to have between them going forward for the next seasons.
Yes, and it's interesting, Mike, to me that in that last scene, she lists off these people that she lost, and he takes it as that's not your fault is kind of what he defaults to. But to me, I just took it as like, no, she's admitting to you she is completely alone. Her world is nothing without you.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
a scene too I want to bring up when they sit down and Joel explains, his suicide attempt, and she opens up to him about Riley being the first person she killed. That's something, comparing the game, that wasn't in the game because the DLC came out after. That conversation doesn't happen between them. So
Wow.
that's something that's additive.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really beautiful scene. It's like, I don't know, time heals all wounds. It wasn't time that did it. And he looks at her and it's like, damn. Completely new scene for the show, and great job. And it really
The
hammers
guy who
home.
shot me there missed. Oh my god,
I shot back. He missed. Yeah, I missed too. Ooh,
it's crazy.
wild.
You also
So,
get the famous giraffe scene.
I was
in
waiting
this
for this.
episode,
Yes, the giraffe.
Oh,
scene.
that's
is,
in the video game.
one of
That's
the-
great.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the last thing they
Wonderful.
do before, they're captured by the Fireflies, but they see this giraffe and they feed it and stuff. And actually, I was watching the making of 30-minute
right.
doc on HBO. I don't know if you guys watched it.
No,
it
I
might
will
have been
have
a
to. I did not.
compilation of all the after episode things. So I didn't watch those, but
Mm-hmm.
I watched this, and it just showed every aspect of how the show is made, and it's very interesting. But with the giraffe, when I was watching, I was like, I can't tell, is that like CG or is it a real giraffe? It looks
CG, right?
kind of
CG.
weird. No, it was a real giraffe.
Whoa!
It was the way they shot that was the actors and the
What?
giraffe are real, and then everything else is blue screen, so they wouldn't
That's
stimulate
why.
the giraffe with the background. But so they just
So
shot in this blue screen room.
Oh,
They got
But that's
an
a real
OJ nope to
giraffe.
bring a giraffe in and said, "Don't look it in the
Yeah, when
eyes."
they were shooting in Alberta, Canada, and the Alberta Zoo happened to have giraffes, so like this works out perfectly.
So we can
Hey,
go
man.
meet that giraffe
I got
in Alberta.
this shy.
Yeah, but it looks kind of like CG, right? Because to us,
Oh,
giraffes are just so
100%.
weird looking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Giraffes
But
are
yeah,
like crazy.
Giraffes.
The green
That's
screen,
great.
the background threw me off. I thought it was a pretty good. Dang, a real giraffe.
It
I'm sorry.
seemed
Is-
blended. Yeah.
Yeah, the background is fake, but the giraffe is real.
Yeah,
Blew
but we
my
get
mind.
a call back to the first time they're up on the roof with Tess in episode 2. Was it everything it's how it thought it would be? Jury's still out, but you can't deny that fucking view. He's very pessimistic originally, and then this time you see how much they've grown and bonded, and it's brilliant. So
Well,
another yeah.
Mike, we've gotten these scenes of like the crying monologue to his brother from Pedro. We've gotten like it's interesting because this show does have quote unquote acting standout moments, but not enough that I would think it would entice really juicy actors. But instead, these performers have given sort of these slow, simmering, wonderful performances with those standout moments. Jacob, I'm now going to say Pedro's best acting is with the giraffe, because the fact that thing is real, and that whole scene he is playing the delight of, look at how much fun my daughter is having feeding a giraffe. Like his look is so sincere to her.
Yeah.
When the giraffe is actually there, that's incredible. That he's not just looking at it going like, oh my God, that's a real giraffe.
Right.
Especially if you've ever seen them fight in real life, they like swing their necks. It's
they're
terrifying.
so scary.
It's like
They're just a weird creature that you don't see very
Deadly.
often.
with like a
20 super tall horse
tongue.
with a weird, with
Fungus
weird
don't
nubs on
care
their
about
head.
them. Nothing ever
Guess
ran
not.
up, or one of them didn't lean all the way down, like eat one mushroom and was like,
Yeah, do the
Yeah, you'd
cordyceps.
think it would be all like living or all mammals. or
It
whatever
says they
infected,
say
but-
every living organism at one point, right? Or every
Yeah.
animal. They say.
Well, you know what the human vector was through the flour mill. So maybe
Right.
if you're just not eating bread,
They're just eating
Right.
like a
branches and
giraffe
stuff.
wouldn't be, you're
yeah,
okay.
leaves and
Yeah. Even carnivores,
silly.
dogs are okay. Just don't eat flour. Yeah. and
Right.
You'll be okay.
yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, it could be. That's my hypothesis. So that's
Yeah.
an example of a scene from the game done incredibly well. And I didn't know they had a real giraffe. That is awesome.
Oh my
Way to go the
God.
extra mile.
Yeah, and shout out to that making of video, which is super interesting, and the way they blended visual effects with like practical stuff is really cool. And certain things
Wow.
like the bloater, they had a practical suit that they shot some stuff with, but ultimately replaced it with CG because they needed to move faster and look bigger and stuff than a human could possibly do. But
These might be the end of episode things. I have seen that part.
yeah, they might have just
That's
compiled them
interesting.
all together. But
Yeah.
it's just I didn't watch any of those while the show was on, so it was just super interesting to see how the level of detail that goes into making this is just insane on a technical level.
Yeah, technically, if it gets to Emmy season or whatever, it's like set dressing easily, like
Yeah.
easily, gotta be.
I think
And then
acting,
yeah,
Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, I think they could definitely be in the mix.
Oh, yeah. I think
Eb-
guest stars are locked
Nick
by a
Offerman.
certain man
Offerman.
named Nick
Yeah.
Offerman. Yes.
Yeah,
For
and what's
sure.
his
And Ron
co-star in that
Swanson
episode?
himself. Murray Bartlett, the
Both,
Murray
yeah,
greatest.
Bartlett
same thing.
from the White Lotus. season
Riley
1.
has a great pop in that episode
Yeah.
8. The actress who
Yeah,
plays
there's
Riley
a lot of
is very strong.
standout one episode characters. And Pedro Pascal is probably very enticing to him after coming off a show where he's wearing a mask for 99%
Yes.
of the time to actually be able to do some acting and stuff.
Yeah.
We like to keep these episodes evergreen. Let's eat shit for a second, though, and
Yeah.
say we were all talking a lot of smack on the Mando premiere, and we have all ended up very much enjoying the little direction that show has taken. So Pedro having a nice little moment, of course.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see.
absolutely.
I don't know how I feel about the season. I mean, I want to see more episodes still, but
It's
I
growing
like
on
the
me,
second
but
episode.
it
Yeah.
is
Eat
funny
shit, dog.
that last week, I'm eating crow. Last week we talked Pedro escorting his little magic child. Again, everyone's made this joke and is aware of it. But yeah, 2 weeks in a row of us talking just Pedro properties, and he was just on Hot Ones. He was extremely charming. Like he's
He
having a
was.
He's the man. He's the man of the hour right now.
He's the man of the hour, the Mandalorian
My
of the
head
hour.
is crying.
You know what's
Yeah.
funny though to me?
So good.
He's still Oberyn Martell is still his most iconic character to me. Now Joel is probably second, so he's surpassed
Wow.
Din Djarin for me in terms of his iconic
Yeah.
character. But Oberyn Martell, the fucking Red Viper, Game of Thrones baby,
Murdered her. Yeah.
he came
dude,
on,
that's-
did one season
Wow.
of the show, and was like a standout character, and that's what really propelled him to the journey he's on now as a star.
Yeah, he did do a lot of bit parts, single episode TV stuff that those have been surfacing on TikTok
Yeah,
or whatever.
he was
People just
working actor
posting.
for like 20 years before he really
Yeah.
made his big break, and it's pretty crazy. You can see him on like Law and Order and Buffy the Vampire
He fought
Slayer.
Wonder Woman, right?
Yeah, but that was after Game of Thrones.
No, yeah,
Game
that's
of Thrones
also
is
no
where
one.
he really,
That's a misstep, a rare misstep post Game
Yeah.
of Thrones. Yeah,
Small stumble.
not his fault.
but I mean, it's
This
yeah,
is the best
everyone
part
loves
of it.
Pedro
It
Pascal
was,
right
actually.
now. He has a great place in his career, and he's probably making a lot of money just from having these 2 shows on where he's making like $500,000 an episode.
Yeah.
He's rolling in it now. But
And he's
good for
doing
him.
I would hope.
episode
He
8, man.
dressed
He's
is
just
very cool.
getting 500,000 to lay on a mattress for like 2 episodes. Good for you, man. And then
Yeah.
also sit at home and record dialogue while John Wayne's grandson is in your Mandalorian armor. So it's
That's right.
Sure.
good money, buddy.
Running around.
In
Mike,
season
who
2,
do you see him as?
Oh, yeah.
The most?
I think this is my
I-
favorite. And then Oberyn Martell.
To you, he is Joel,
He's Joel
now. Truly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's something about it, man. It
Guys,
works.
look. In the last episode, I again, sorry for the Mando talk,
No,
but
no,
in the
no.
last episode, what's her name? What is her name? Bo-Katan.
Bo-Katan.
Calls
Bo-Katan.
him Din Djarin. I haven't heard that name in 1,000 years. That's maybe your guys' only argument that that's not who he is, but to me, he is
Yeah.
the Mandalorian. That is what he will always be. That's crazy to
To
me.
me,
We
he'll
all have
always
3
be Oberyn
different
Martell
choices.
because that was the first time I came to know of him as an actor.
Yes.
And
But Game of
role's
Thrones
so
feels like
iconic.
such a moment, Jacob, doesn't it? Star Wars is forever. What a worthless thing I just said.
Oh,
oh no,
geez, yeah.
I mean you're forgetting House of the Dragon came out this year and was a huge hit.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
And also Game of Thrones is where this whole thing started with The Last of Us because Bella Ramsey, she got her big break on Game of Thrones. So it's all thanks
Hey,
to
there
HBO.
we go. It's all
That's right.
connected. Yeah.
Jacob, what HBO prestige show did you like better this year? House of Dragons or The Last of Us?
Ooh.
I would have to say House of the Dragon by a slim margin. Overall, I think it's the better show. And I think it's up there with the best seasons of Game of Thrones. So I think it was that good. But I think Last of Us has also been a good show.
Mike?
It's again, I love this. I love you, Pedro, but I think House of Dragon is a little bit better.
Yeah.
The ending's a little stronger. I mean, again, I knew what was going to happen here, so maybe that's coloring
Yeah.
it too.
I think that
If
is
I
a
had-
big part of it, is that we both knew the story from the game, and it's not that change from. So maybe if you're going to it fresh, it might
Well,
be better to you.
Especially if you don't like
but
fantasy.
again, that's my point of view. I'll answer the question as well, guys.
Mhm.
I choose House of the Dragon as well. Here's my weird argument to you guys. It feels like it had more of an idea for a fully developed show than this show executed. Last of Us. And and Last of Us is adapting a fully executed story. This is House of the Dragons was adapting a brochure. Jacob, what did we settle on?
Yeah.
A poem, the idea
Mhm.
of an idea.
Right, like the end notes of a novel and stuff. Yeah. But I mean,
Right.
this
That's
show,
what-
is better than the Rings of Power, right? We
which
can
was
say
also
that.
based on the end notes of another book.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's better than the Halo TV show. So if you're talking
But
about
Halo had a story. And again, it is so interesting to just discard it all and go like, well, no, we're going to do our own thing that's sort of
Yeah.
like loosely Halo inspired with the character known as Master Chief that you kind of know now in our story.
yeah,
This
thing
isn't
is that,
that.
he takes off his helmet, which he's famous for doing in the games, of course.
He has
Yeah.
sex. He's
He has sex
horny.
with
He's the
a
horniest
Master
Prisoner
Cheeks
prisoner
is what
while
we call them.
Cortana watches. Yeah, it's really
here-
good stuff.
I want to expand on that because the story in this, like we said, it's pretty straightforward. You know what the key plot points are, and they hit all of those, right? But we've done Resident Evil on this podcast, and that's another one. Like, there's an easy Resident Evil movie. It's called Spooky Mansion. There's a lab in the basement in the third act, and you have it, and you just won't fucking make it, right? And so this is the
Right.
first time maybe Hollywood will be like, huh, in the Mario movies looking good, just because it's like we're using all the source imagery and iconography, because there's not really a story behind, I've been kidnapped, come get me, right? Same thing with
Yeah.
Sonic, but we can use the iconography, and like now it's getting more successful, so it's like just get somebody involved with the games on board, be a little bit true to the source material, and we can do it. And I just
Yeah.
hope that this fosters that,
Well, for a long time, Hollywood was just like, we'll take the name and then we'll completely change every aspect of it, and that'll be popular, right?
As
And then-
recently as Halo, right?
yeah.
Well, what outside of Halo, Mike? What is a game story-wise you would like to see something adapted, untouched, not for aesthetic reasons like a Mario or a Sonic, or where
Yeah.
somebody's just going like, I'm just doing the world.
I said it, man. Resident Evil. Give me Resident Evil 1.
Resident Evil, sure,
The
okay.
Spooky Mansion,
Give me
lab in the
4.
basement. Yeah.
Give me fucking 4. Come on,
4,
Jesus Christ.
3, just Jill
Yeah.
escaping. Like, you could do them all. Even Resident Evil 2. It's like just
Yeah.
like,
They
do
should at
the
least
plot
have a
of the
4
game.
remaster, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my property. Jacob, do you have any property you think would make a good video
I
game
think,
adaptation? I'm sure there's going to be an arms race to sign rights after this.
Well,
Yeah.
reminder: Twisted Metal is coming out on Peacock, and we all have no idea
sure.
what that's going to
It's
be
going to
like.
be like the story is completely different from whatever the game was.
That's going to be like the Sonic or the Mario. The
It's going to be
adapt,
like
the
Sweet Tooth
weird.
being a maniac in a car. Like,
Yeah.
What do you...
there
there's
might
a
not
main
even be a
character.
character named Sweet Tooth. We don't know.
We
Yeah,
don't know.
geez.
Let's,
But
yeah.
I would say, for me, Red Dead Redemption 2
Okay.
had a great
Yellowstone,
story that could be adapted.
1886. Yeah, dude. The
Westerns,
appetite's
everybody
ready.
loves westerns.
Perfect.
Yep.
That could
Voice
work as
actor
a,
looks like
as
him,
a
too.
streaming series. Yeah.
These
That would be
latest God of Wars, these ones where they're like, these stories are just like, they're about a man and his son and the loss
Mhm.
of a woman, and you can't touch them. It's grieving dad porn.
Teaching
Like, to
them
me,
how to
that is what a lot
survive.
of the stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like these mission, but I mean, again, it's another, you're escorting a young,
You're right,
through
Resident Evil 4.
the dangerous.
Boy.
Is that the chemistry, Mike, that works? Is
Yeah.
that the real secret sauce, not necessarily the game or the formula or whatever it's
Well, we
stealing?
talked off the podcast about also Adam Driver's dinosaur movie, 65 million,
Yes.
right? Similar formula. And
Yes.
maybe it's just something about the cultural shift in the way we look at our male protagonists. Like we're accepting and open to being like, hey, let's have a vulnerable, emotionally available, or like, emotionally existing human, right? So it's shifting the way we're building our heroes, and I think that's good. Even
Well, the
Kratos,
whole-
manliest
But
of
he
man,
has
has
to-
feeling.
But my issue is that he has to get there. Now we have to see this process where it's like he starts very cold, but then by the end he's like, hey, you want to play Boggle, Ellie?
It's a
You're
little
like,
default,
oh, okay.
yeah.
Great.
Fair enough.
Cool.
There's
Yeah.
an archetype.
But the whole grizzled action dad
Alan
is like a
Grant.
very
Yeah.
popular
I don't like
Yes.
trope.
That's
right
what it is.
now.
Grizzled action dad, Jacob.
Yeah.
That's great. That is what it is. Yes.
I'm still
And I
calling it
think
the
part of
Alan
it is
Grant
like,
factor.
action, Hollywood action stars aging into an age of, where a lot of people are become parents
Paternal.
and stuff. So they're like, I
Yes.
need my parent movie where I'm
Yes.
escorting a young child and doing action and protecting them and stuff.
And I might learn something
See-
from them too along the way.
It used to be I want my vigilante with a gun franchise where people were like,
Mhm.
give me I want to start just shooting people on the subway and being called the hero. And you're like,
Right.
okay, why?
The Taken
Now I think
angle.
Mike, the Taken, I
yeah,
think
you
there was
used to have
one
to
called
rescue your daughter.
Peppermint with Jennifer Garner.
Yeah.
Jodie
Yeah.
Foster has one called The One. Like I could name Death Wish. I could name the Death Wish remake with Bruce Willis before he lost his mind, unfortunately.
Taxi Driver
Supposedly
starts
was
that.
doing it on that set. He was shooting
That's
with live
right.
guns. Very scary. That is so discarded now, I think, because the culture is so anti-gun. I think we found our new thing, which is, like Jacob just said, a star hits parent age and it's like, give me a movie where I'm not really a parent, but like the moral is it would be okay if I was a parent.
Maybe like an
And you're like,
adopted child
okay,
that I have to care
yeah.
for.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah.
Logan.
Logan, yeah.
Hey, wow.
X-23.
Nice. Hey,
Yeah,
wow.
totally.
That's
But I
pretty good.
think the real test of this show will be how they handle the second and third seasons, because they
Great
said
way to bring it around.
the second game is going to be split into multiple seasons, which makes sense because
Right.
it has a bigger scope, more characters and stuff that we see. But the real test is going to be, and this, I don't want to spoil anything, so maybe I'm not going to spoil anything specific, but but if you don't want any spoilers for the second or the future seasons, just skip ahead like 30 seconds. But there's something that happens towards the beginning of the second game that's a big thing that might change the core cast, right? And so how do you do this show without a certain character that's very important to the first season?
Right.
Can it live on its own stakes? Can Ellie kind of come into her own as a main character? Can other new characters in the second game hold their own? A playable character who's very controversial in that game will need to be cast, and I just pray for whoever's cast, because they're going to get a lot of hate online just because of that character. It's kind of inevitable, I think.
That's an
If
interesting
you know what I'm
place.
talking about.
Yeah, that's an interesting place to be, and I won't expand on the spoilers, but the idea of multiple seasons for the second act, right? I saw somewhere that a theory that you could do a season in between the first game and the second game, because there's more adventures happening. There's a
Sure.
bit of a time jump. So
Right.
as long as you have the game developers involved still,
But
he
would it
created the
have the
characters.
same stakes when like,
Right.
I mean, video game players will know already the story, but for even
But
new
we're already in
people,
that boat.
Yeah.
So
But
you
can
could
they
do
have a compelling enough story to tell in between? I think they can stretch it out a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
But how far can you go? And that's the big question, for sure, because everyone loves the first game that played it. The story, like, generally the internet agrees, good. But the
Yes.
second game is divisive, and like just generally speaking, right? And people feel a certain way
For a couple
strongly and
different
another way
reasons,
strongly.
yeah.
So how do you do something that's divisive and try
I
to
would
please
argue-
everybody? So
Yeah.
that's their obstacle.
The second game, I think, is a better story than the first game. It's more ambitious.
There's lessons from the first game too, such as violence is bad, we shouldn't be doing it. And then in the second game, you're doing a lot of violence, but they're trying to add humanity to the characters that you're killing. Like, oh, Dave,
really-
that's David, you know?
Yeah, that's a specific thing with the second game that I remember.
So that'll be
Every
important.
NPC has a name, and they talk to each other all the time, and they call each other by names. So every person you kill literally has a name in the
like,
game.
it's Jesse.
insane.
They'll find bodies and freak out, like, oh, that's our homie. So that'll be an interesting
and it
thing
really
to tackle.
personalizes the violence for you, where it's like, oh, that person I just slit their throat, they had a name.
Yeah,
you know?
which
I'm gonna
yeah,
Well,
that's
I'm
part
gonna
of it.
I'm gonna tell a really big spoiler about the next season, and I don't want people to skip ahead because I do want this ruined for them.
Okay,
When we do eventually get this older Ellie character, I know she somehow is given a sleeve tattoo, like she has a very intricate tattoo on one of her arms. That seems very dangerous to get in a future post-apocalyptic world. Who is giving her a tattoo?
I don't remember.
Yeah, you know. If she
That's
gets it
probably
over
the-
her wound, right?
Mm.
Yeah, the town
Oh,
in Jackson is
interesting.
much more, as we
Yeah.
see in the show, is like much more civilized. Like they've got
Ah.
electricity, they've
Like
got
Jackson Hole.
Ah.
Yeah.
food and everything. Yeah, they're doing pretty good there, right? They're
I think,
communists.
hey man,
And some guy's like, "Hey, I'm the tattoo artist of the future, baby."
I'm not saying
right.
right. You can get a tattoo in prison. I'm sure you could get one in the apocalypse,
Hey,
right?
Mike, I'd be like, "Hey,
Well, stick and
Dave,
poke.
every
Yeah.
day I have to work down at the mill making sure we have bread. I'm not positive you need to be the town's tattoo artist. Like, you can go spend a couple
Maybe you just
shifts."
do it as a
I do it in
hobby,
the
though.
evenings and weekends for
Yeah.
fun. Okay. Yeah.
I would break his needle.
I'm an
They've got
artist.
everything
Yeah. What would Ron Swanson think about a tattoo artist in the apocalypse?
right. That's
But
right.
he's
Useless
growing
skill.
strawberries and stuff.
Yeah, right. But you eat
Strawberries.
those.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does get that tattoo. Big spoiler. Sorry, everybody.
I can't even imagine. And so here's the other thing. Now, Jacob said maybe there is time skippy stuff, not time skip, but it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. Bella Ramsey, obviously not actually 14 years old. I think she's like 17.
They
or
aged her
something like
down
that.
for this season anyway,
Yeah.
so it'll be easier to
Should totally be fine.
play her
But
real
there
age.
is this ongoing online community, which I'm going to
Mhm.
address right now, that is replace Bella Ramsey because they want someone who looks quote unquote more accurate to Ellie
Oh,
in the
really?
video game,
I didn't even
and that
know
they
this.
think in this quote unquote time jump that's going to occur for season 2, this is the perfect time. Let's do it. Like blah blah blah. You got to replace her. Ridiculous.
That's
Here's the
stupidest
worst thing though.
I've ever
Craig Mazin commented on it and was like, "No, we would never do that unless Bella Ramsey wanted us to replace her." But to me, I'm like, why would you even phrase it that way?
Yeah.
Like, don't even like bring it up or say anything like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
a terrible idea, and I
Yes.
don't know why you would want that. I don't know who you think that like you want a perfectly video like you want a real person that looks like this video character. Sorry, get Elliot Page 20 years ago, but
And
Yeah,
they had to
it
change the
doesn't
design
look like Ashley
because
Johnson.
Elliot Page was
Right.
complaining that it's a little too
Yes.
close to my likeness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right. I don't know. Yeah,
They
I think
were
there's
in their
just
own video game at the
that
time.
looks
that
exactly
can't
like
remember
this
what it's called.
character.
That's right.
This video game character. Like, get real.
Yeah. I think Bella Ramsey owns this role just like Pedro
Yes.
owns Joel. And she says on the internet she's 19 in real life. So if you have
Okay,
an
wow.
interstitial season, which is more Ellie and Joel adventures before getting into all of season or game 2, let's say, then you can have a year or so for her to kind of get a little bit older.
But yeah, by the time they shoot it, yeah, she'll. I
Yeah,
don't
oh,
even
yeah.
know how
she'll be
old she's
aged and
supposed to be in
she'll
the
be ready to
second
go.
game, but
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, that whole argument's like the same thing. My sister, when she first started watching it, she was like, I don't know if I like Pedro Pascal as Joel because he's just not the Joel that I imagined. But it's it's like, I don't know, what do you want to do?
It's the
Like, I
Joel that
thought
we
Joel was great.
deserve. The Joel
Yeah.
we need. Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, to underline just my thoughts about the second game and the future of this show before we get to final
Please.
thoughts. Going back to that violence being bad, being a big thing of the second game, like as we talked about the finale of this show, it's shocking to see how bad we think killing is. We think Joel has done a bad thing, and that will have to be a major theme. And the way they pay that off in the game, it seems like they undercut it because you're murdering hundreds of people. Like, okay, you're telling me this is bad, but I cannot do anything but kill to advance, right? Whereas in the show, you can really focus on a core moment and really limit the amount of murder
True.
and the weight it has on the human psyche. So that'll be a big thing.
And
And I think Joel will be dealing with that a lot too.
Yeah.
I hope so. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the whole David encounter is foreshadowing certain things because in the David encounter, so they go to the university, they are attacked by some raiders and they kill one of them. Then they learn that they were part of the same group that David was part of, and because of that, like they know that they're out there and that Joel is injured and stuff. So it has ramifications that if you kill someone, they have relatives, they have people that are close to them.
Kansas City gives us this too.
Yeah. So it's
Henry
like
kills her
these things are
brother.
connected. So
Mm-hmm.
Joel killing a whole hospital full of people, again, that's going to have ramifications. Like those people didn't live in isolation. Like they knew people, and
A
that's
major
the cycle.
faction too, the Fireflies.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the cycle, and it's going to be interesting. And I did see in the game, you can choose to kill the 2 unarmed nurses or walk away. So the
Okay.
fact that they did that in the show where he said them turn around, so that's a choice you can make whether
Yeah.
to kill
You
the
have to
two
kill the doctor.
remaining nurses. Yeah.
He hold up that scalpel, he's threatening
Yep,
your life.
he's threatening me, yeah.
Stand your
Well,
ground.
Coming right for us.
Joel,
In Florida, that wouldn't even be illegal.
Don't you South Park me look? Joel is impressive at the casual, not positive. He's pointing the gun at you, pulls the trigger, shoots you right at the temple of your forehead, and kills you in one shot.
We
Sure.
needed a scene of him being good at killing to show he's competent, but again, morally wrong. But it's good that we got this. I was hoping for a oneer. I wanted a long one
Oh,
take
that
through
would've
the
been scary.
hospital, but still great work. But
I mean, that's like the game. That would have been truly, violence
give
in
us
your
one
hands.
oneer
Yeah.
through the hospital. But anyway, still a good job. Any other thoughts
Oh,
before we
another
get to
good
final
scene,
thoughts? Or any
yeah,
scene highlights, standout episodes, anything we want to throw in here?
I watched the gay episode. I'm gonna keep calling it that. I
Yeah.
apologize. I know it's
Which
more
one?
than that, but I watched. Yes, very true.
Yeah.
I watched the male gay episode.
There we go.
4 times. I truly think it's beautiful. I think it's one of the best written things. I looked up.
Mhm.
Specifically, I wanted to see if the sky was CGI when they have their first fight. Do you guys remember? There's so many clouds in that
Mhm.
huge blue sky. I thought I've never seen anything like that. No, I found BTS. It is practical. And then in that
Wow.
thread with the cinematographer of that episode, I found this entire running Twitter thread of him explaining why they chose every shot of the episode and specifically saying, here's me with Craig Mazin, where Craig Mazin is jogging because he directs this episode, or Neil Druckmann, whichever
Mhm.
one of them directed that episode in particular, where we're trying to figure out where Magic Hour will be for the shot with the strawberries, the 2 men jogging leading to the strawberries. And they built the entire town around it where they settled would be the best
Wow.
shot to get the sun next to the strawberry. So it seems like he's eating a little piece of heaven and sunlight. And the
Jesus.
cinematographer saying all this stuff, and I'm like weeping, like reading, like the
Yeah.
idea that someone put so much thought and attention in 2023 into the material that they are creating and making, when the company he's making it for, HBO, let's just say this too, is truly choosing to be like, oh, I've watched your thing. You're not coming out, Batgirl. Like, it's not happening. Like, that's a
Yeah.
very real, what you
Well,
create,
HBO
there
is-
is no guarantee anymore.
It's
Wow,
weird
yeah.
with HBO because they have such a good reputation
Yes.
creatively with their shows, and I think they're still
They've
on a
earned.
strong track record. It's the executives behind it, and it's the Warner Brothers merger and everything that's like ruining everything. But I
Mhm.
think with creative, like they pick, like HBO has the best track record of any
100%.
Netflix, Disney, any of those that of just putting out these quality shows,
Yeah.
prestige TV or whatever. But yeah, that I would say that third episode was really the standout of the season
My
for me.
God.
And
Mhm.
because it was the most different from the show, it was like the most new
from the game.
material from the game.
Mhm.
I was like, hell yeah, I wanted more of that kind of actually. And I think that a longer season would have allowed more of that kind of expanding on the source material. But then there's a whole contingent of people that are like, oh, I didn't like, that episode was
How dare
stupid
they
because
do that? Even?
it didn't
The
progress
woke of us
main
kind of
plot at all.
assholes.
Not even that, but just to say like, oh, it doesn't service the core main plot of Joel and Ellie,
It's
which is
all
like, it doesn't have to. Like, it's
Back-
thematically important too.
right,
Back to
thematically
the-
connected.
Back to the Reddit real quick, Jacob. A mod post had to be stickied on the Last of Us HBO subreddit, which is different than the Last of Us subreddit,
Mhm.
which is different than the Last of Us Part 1 subreddit, which is different than the Last of Us Part 2 subreddit. There's a real
Right.
issue here.
Last
These
of Us
people are not
speedrunner subreddit,
unified.
yeah.
Truly. In the HBO one, where they had to say, if Pedro Pascal / Joel isn't in the scene, that doesn't mean what's happening is filler. Everybody needs to relax.
Right.
Mhm.
And to use this word filler, like, you don't understand, like, this is not an anime, like a shonen anime where there's like a bunch of filler. Like, having
Yeah.
this one episode story, I would not consider that filler whatsoever. And thematically, it's important to Joel and Elle's story, but also it's just like not every single thing in this show needs to be about those two characters. Like,
No.
it's showing the world in general, and it's interesting. So I don't know why people are against that kind of thing. Like, oh, if it's not following Joel and Ellie precisely, that it doesn't matter.
Also, they could be using it as a convenient excuse to complain about an episode that they didn't like for a worse
Yes.
reason, maybe. But I think, yeah, it's thematically, It's all about what do we live for in the post-apocalypse. We see it with Riley and Ellie. We have 2 minutes left, but we're not going to give that up. We see it with Bill and Frank. We see it with Henry and Sam and Joel and Ellie. It's all connected thematically, even when we take a break from these characters. And I fucking loved it. And I think 3 and 8 are my favorites too.
Definitely. And people are just throwing that filler word around too
I despise
much.
it. Yes.
The word itself is filler.
Series does not have any filler, really.
It's truly, Jacob, but it's hitting woke territory where you want to go like, you don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Or what you're watching. Like if you think it's unrelated, you're foolish.
Try watching try watching Dragon Ball Z or something if you want.
Yeah, wow. Powering up for a whole episode. But yeah, great stuff, Colin. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, let's jump over to our final thoughts then. I say, let's really dish out what we're thinking on this whole series. We've loved it. We've loved talking about it, but my brain is just feeling so mushroomy right now that I think we got to go. I think we got to jump to our final thoughts here on The Last of Us.
All right.
Normies Like Us. We're back on Normies Like Us, wrapping it up with our final thoughts here on The Last of Us, the HBO series. What a season it's been. We took some detours. I mean, I think we all really enjoyed talking about this show because it crept into a couple episodes. We did the pilot. We did some watch-shows. I think Jacob brought it up on some of our Star Trek movie episodes. There's a good chance.
By it.
We got infected.
Yeah. It got into our systems. And
yes.
Yeah,
I'm going to need to see that brain, Mike.
Yeah. Well, let me... First, I want to learn how to play the guitar. Please don't do that. Have you ever played Boggle? And why do the moon rocks taste better than Earth rocks? They were meteor.
They were media.
Yeah, since the first episode, I think, we were... I mean, at least I know I was as a player of the game. I was like cautiously optimistic. Like, it looks good. We got a lot of the people from Chernobyl here. We got Druckmann. Like, okay. This on paper, the casting's good. I think we're just really surprised by the first episode. And then it was just consistent every week. It was great. And you don't get that out of video games. And again, HBO has a good track record, so I absolutely loved it. And it's just weird that it's the same platform that has Lovecraft Country and canceled it. You know what I mean? Which is the opposite side of this.
Sometimes they cancel their shows too soon.
Not as much as Netflix.
Yeah, but they take risk on a lot of their shows, and
they took risk with this, and it paid off.
Draggies is safe. Our little house.
Oh,
that's their golden child.
That has viewership numbers that makes it safe.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some. I mean, going back to the age of The Sopranos, The Wire, Deadwood, Rome. I mean,
Deadwood.
HBO's track record goes back even before Game of Thrones, which was a game-changing thing in itself.
It brought him into
Succession,
the modern era. A
show that I love that you guys have never seen, coming back for its 4th season and last season this year. That's going to be great.
Wow.
Barry coming back for its last season. That's going to be great.
Never seen Euphoria, but people seem to like it.
Euphoria, that's more of a teen show.
Like Skins, I guess,
Yeah,
but it's popular.
It's like Skins. It is popular. But yeah, they take risks. They try different things. And, their original program is very good. And I think The Last of Us is a good show. And I think
they've got another hit on their hands.
Yeah, and it was the perfect game to adapt because if you play the game, it feels like you're playing a prestige drama or a movie because the story is just that good. So to see that and say this should be a series, it makes a lot of sense. And I don't think you could do it for every game this way.
Well, Jacob, you wouldn't want HBO to do it for every game. You wouldn't want HBO's Mario or The Legend of Zelda. Them picking the one where it's like the storytelling forward. Again, like you just said, Sopranos could go hand in hand with a show where it's like the drama of this episode is like, how hard are you going to cry when this kid has to kill a pedophile? And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Sam and Henry, that stuff too. It's like, and it's cool because the game will be a downer, right?
Yes.
And TV shows generally like, oh, we're going to have a happy ending, right? And so it's like, I think that's why the game was so effective because there was just such real, like, heavy moments throughout. And for them to be like, this is the show we're doing, and to commit to it being a fucking downer, like, 80% chance of tears every week, good for them.
It is a lot like The Walking Dead thematically, but The Walking Dead's problem is it went on a million seasons. It had a lot of filler, and it was sort of meandering Whereas The Last of Us has this tight plot that they know, like it's all about these two characters, their journey across America. Whereas Walking Dead, they're like, they kind of went away from what happened in the comics. We're just like, we're just going to make it up as we go along, and we'll add in certain iconic characters like Negan and stuff, but it's going to be a lot of meandering without kind of any idea of where they're going with the story.
Mhm.
Introducing new characters, killing off old characters, blah blah blah. The Last of Us, the strength of it is that it is kind of tightly focused on this story.
I think our biggest complaint is slightly more action, and we wanted more. Essentially, we wanted more episodes. But
Yeah,
think
I
what we
want
got
more
was really
time to
strong.
breathe with these
It-
characters. and-
Yes.
yeah.
That's a
Mhm.
big part of it. I had said before about how one of its strengths, like House of Dragons, is this playing with time, the sort of dilation of you can see these people, not necessarily at happier times, but you get to see the journey of how somebody could become a soulless killing machine, essentially, right? Is part of the fun, I guess, the
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
of The Last of Us. Unfortunately, again, because of the 9 episodes, I think this is really the only answer I can come up with. You get a lot of this stuff where it's like, can you believe we just spent 2 months in the woods together? Ellie, you and I understand our body language better than anybody else can. Where I, as a viewer, I'm like, you just spent how long with each other in the woods? That's
Yeah.
crazy. What do you mean you're closer together? I would have liked to see you guys get closer together.
Yeah,
you there,
and
yep.
especially towards the end, it does feel like I thought the last episode was great, but just the last 3 or 4 episodes strung together feels a little bit rushed, like they're rushing through the third act of
The
the story.
baby girl to literally the Joel puppy dog, which I think is the worst writing of the whole series, is the opening to the last episode where he's like, Ellie, I brought you that Chef Boyardee you like. Ellie, look, it's Boggle, Ellie. You ever played Boggle?
The
Ellie,
thing
I
was
love you, Ellie. Baby girl, Ellie. Ellie, let me pick you up for a minute. My little girl, my little baby Ellie girl.
Her
Play guitar, yeah.
trauma, her PTSD of what she
Yes.
experienced in
Yes.
the whole David thing, she's kind of out of it and just like, I mean, going through all that would be traumatic, so I can kind of
course.
understand that.
And
And he's
I-
trying to relate to her, but yeah.
4 episodes ago, and
Yeah.
then not even including a spin-off where we didn't even see one of them for maybe 2 of them in between those. So let's say 6 episodes ago, he was saying, you're not family, you're cargo.
Yeah,
You mean
no,
nothing to me.
Yeah.
When they get to the commune, it goes really quickly from "all right, I'm leaving at dawn,
Yes.
goodbye forever" to "oh, actually,
You're my daughter. You're
Yeah, yeah.
actually, Jacob, if Jill had turned and said, actually, you are my daughter, I would have been
Yeah.
like, yes, you are. And he does almost say those words in this. You're like my daughter. And she goes like, how? And he's like, I don't know, kind of.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
not really. You're kind of different too. but-
That brings up a point where
Yeah.
at least the Tommy and Joel said, "You make the choice. Who do you want to go
Yes.
with?" So and that she had agency in that moment, which is great. But I just like when Joel's all giddy about, "Hey, you want Chef Boyardee?" It's the opposite of the early scenes
Yeah.
where she's trying to read from the books and he's like,
Yeah.
"Whatever, I'm not invested."
Right.
For a
So it's a
long
flip
time,
on
he
that.
kind of kept her at arm's length, so he
Closes her
didn't
off.
get
She
too
would try to
attached.
joke, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So it works, I
See,
think, to show.
how did
but-
you survive? Only you could have made it across. I mean, that's what they're highlighting. That he
Mhm.
is someone who, by being that closed off, can survive anything.
Yeah,
Opening yourself up is the most dangerous thing. That's the title. What does the title The Last of Us mean?
Yeah, what does it mean? What? Yeah,
I mean, well, I guess it's
We-
just the people. We're the last people.
we're
You
the
are-
Walking
I
Dead.
am-
We are the
we
Last
all
of
are.
Us.
We are the
Walking Dead.
cordyceps.
We are all the Last
the
of Us.
famous line Joel says to Ellie.
Mhm.
You are the cordyceps
Yeah.
We were the fun. Turns out mankind was the fungus all along. you
the
know?
whole time, Ellie.
Wow.
Yep.
Joel Grimes. That's what I call him.
Joel Grimes.
Here, I'm done talking about this. I loved it. My thoughts are expressed. Here's the
Yeah, more
last thing I'm
time.
going to say. My quick shout out to end this is there were moments of beauty where even outside of Frank and what was the other Bob? What was the other one's name?
Bill.
Bill. Sorry, Frank and Bill. You also got the taste that savagery and evil had not fully given over. You, of course, got the old couple together. I want to shout out actor Graham Greene, Native American actor Graham Greene, who is
yeah.
very special to my father and I. My father and I watched this show together, texting when we watched it. But in particular, the only time I have ever left the country in my life was to go to Canada for one day, one afternoon, to go see the taping of a Canadian broadcast corporation, a CBC PBS aired an America show called The Red Green Show, where Graham Greene was a guest actor on the show all the time.
Wow.
My dad's favorite character actor.
Wow.
Loved him, loved it. So to see him pop up in this, we adored it. I adored it.
I didn't know
So,
any of that. That's
That's awesome.
great.
This is the
He's great,
couple.
he's the best.
You better point to the same spot on the map that you do. Yeah.
Did you lie? Are you lying to me?
Yep.
Yeah, she has a girl.
Yep.
And that's what softens him. It's
You
like,
didn't
oh,
shoot
this,
him?
Steals their
this
rabbits.
guy's got a little girl. Yeah,
Yep. No, that's great. Cool. That's a nice shout out. Yeah,
beautiful.
it was great. Could have been slightly longer, but
Yeah.
otherwise I think did a good job with themes. We're all excited for season 2, I'd say, but it is going to be
I'm excited to
that's
see
a hot topic. We're going to see how they end that.
see if they stick the landing, see if it can move past the Joel and Ellie as the main two characters, because it does expand the cast and
There's
the
a second
scope of the
group
story.
that's a big part of
Oh.
it.
Yeah.
They're kind of two perspectives. We're dealing with two different groups in parallel.
Yeah, and also
sort
certain
of.
characters
Yeah.
that, from the community that they're in the second game become more important and stuff like, Ellie's girlfriend Dina. and
Are
stuff.
They
there
seeded
any
her in the
returning
village.
characters?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it'll start out. They go back to Tommy's settlement and they're living there. So then there's a time jump. So they've been living
And then
there for several
Ellie
years.
has some friends that she's made there, and they do little adventures. Joel's doing his thing. There's another group out there, So
That's
there's,
wild.
I think it's going to be
Okay.
focused in Tommy's village, though. So I assume a lot of those
Okay.
characters will come. We'll
That's
find the
great.
tattoo artist.
Yeah, oh my. We'll get
I'm
some more
excited for
Diego
it.
Luna. That'll be cool.
Oh, get Diego Luna to be give him tattoos too.
Or
Luna.
Gabriel Luna. I'm
no,
sorry.
but get Diego in here to
but
do the
yes,
tattoos. Just
that would
put
be
him in
great.
there.
That'd
We
be
want more
great. Yeah.
Diego.
Just have him play Cassian Andor.
I used to be an unlicensed tattoo artist. You could say I was a rogue one.
I've
And,
done some things I'm
Wow.
not proud of.
Yep.
Oh my god, he has.
He was he was a revolutionary. Yeah, perfect. Might as well get a Luthen in here too. Just get all of our
That's
favorite
right,
actors
yeah.
from the Star
Oh
Wars
please. I
Make it
wish
an
he saw
Andor.
Skarsgård.
Last of Us crossover.
reunion.
Jacob, any
Mandalorian.
final thoughts?
Mandalorian, sorry.
Just what you guys were saying, like a few
Fungus.
critiques, but overall, I thought it was really strong, and I am excited for the second season, for sure.
Out of a 10, I give the entire season, because the ending was good, but not incredible. I think it was a little rushed. I agree with you guys. I give it an 8.5 out of 10, with
Wow.
one episode being a 10 out of 10, another couple being 9.5, right? So
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
think
just
yeah.
Sorry.
no. Go ahead. I go ahead, please.
I think that's just the main thing for me is that even if they had more adventures in between,
Yeah.
like just something where we could get to know the characters a little better. 9 episodes felt too short to me. It could have been 18 episodes. It could have been split into 2 seasons. I don't know. Like it could have been a lot of things, but
Well, literally, what I was going to ask was, could I? How long would it take me to beat the game?
10 hours.
And
If you're on
this was
casual-
9.
Yeah,
the first game, it's not.
10 to 15, depending on if you're
Yeah.
exploring
It's not a
everything. If you
super
burn
long
through
game.
it,
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. How many more can you get out of that then?
just
But you
play it
could
on easy, though.
add like the Kansas City story and stuff. You could add other 1 episode adventures that weren't in the game and kind
Like
of expand the
Pittsburgh
story
and
of the
Kansas
game.
City are combined into one.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But just add,
Okay.
like, they added new characters like the Melanie Linsky character and stuff.
Right.
So like
Right. You're right.
they could have added new subplots and stuff. Just
And we never got to see him make a bomb out of a coffee can. There's like certain game stuff that you do, like crafting, and like that would have been neat. He does talk about
Just
Crafting.
see-
You wanted to see some crafting?
Anytime
just to
they're in
see
their
where
backpack, I'm like,
a couple
hell yeah.
infected or something. Like just see them do something. Like because like
Yeah.
outside of the big finale of the Kansas City, like we didn't see that many infected for a zombie show. And I don't need like action every episode like The Walking Dead or something. But
No, but you have to
Mhm.
imagine it was said to a person who writes the checks at HBO, aka Warner Brothers, Jacob. Please, this will be your Walking Dead. And that they are cashing that check going, okay, our understanding is a certain amount of action things will happen, and for them to not have
Right.
forced that is pretty impressive.
They
is
stay
weird.
their hand.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, Walking Dead was one of the most popular shows in its peak, where millions of people are watching it, and they did like to see some action, some zombie action. Like that was a big
like
part of
to.
the draw of it, right? So
We didn't get a lot, but what we got was very well executed. I think every
yeah,
one of
and they're
those
telling
scenes
more
is
mature
memorable.
story, a
Yeah.
more prestige story, but a little infected action wouldn't have been a bad thing to me.
You
No.
get no more than 2. There's the rule of 2, except for that one episode, right?
Yeah,
But now we're just nitpicking,
Yeah.
for sure.
on something that turned out really great. So congratulations to all the creators, all the actors, everyone behind this deserves credit. Below the line, above the line, they really everyone did a great job on this show, and hopefully they sign as many of them back to work on season 2 that want to come back, because they've all earned it, and they should give them
Yeah.
raises. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
only replace them if they want to be replaced.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Yeah. He's giving her a
Interesting.
choice. He's giving Bella
Yeah.
Ramsey agency if she
Yeah.
chooses.
Boy.
I pretty
Ah,
much
way
will
to
watch
phrase
anything
it.
that Pedro Pascal does, because I just like him so much. Any
Mhm.
project that he's going to pick, like, I'm probably going to be interested in the future.
I want him in a Ryan Johnson, Glass Onion,
Yeah,
Knives Out mystery style. Put him
sure.
in there. Anyway.
He
love it.
I want him to do because he's really good friends with Oscar Isaac in real life, and they've done one movie together, but I feel like they could do something together that would be a lot of fun, like a buddy comedy or something.
Jacob, your letterbox was reminding me recently. Did you just watch something Pedro Pascal was in that I wasn't thinking about?
Oh, the Judd Apatow, The Bubble movie. Which is
Jacob.
not very good.
Jacob.
And even Pedro Pascal
That's
couldn't save it.
maybe a rare miss for him recently, right? I did want to point that out. Thank you for shouting that out.
Oh,
Yeah.
2022, The Bubble. Yep.
But I mean, he's great. I mean, that Nicolas Cage movie that he did.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I did not like The Bubble at all. I think The Bubble was
The
one of the
Bubble
worst
was bad.
movies ever made.
But I don't think he
Interesting.
was necessarily the worst part of it or anything. He was
Yeah.
just in a bad movie. But
Yeah.
he's still great. And, I'll still watch stuff that he's in. I think him and Oscar Isaac, buddy comedy, I would be there, I
Mhm.
would be in the theater. Maybe on
Yep.
streaming, but yeah.
Yeah.
Stuber 2? You want Stuber 2 with that cast? Wow.
Him and Batista together? I would
Small
love
glasses.
that too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah, great.
smaller.
Let's go. Come on.
Well, you tell us what your fan castings are for a Pedro buddy movie. Everybody's listening. Appreciate coming along.
We
for
got
the ride.
15 things we want you writing about. Whether or not you like The Last of Us, if this is your favorite video game adaptation, what one you would do. There's a lot to talk to us about. Reach out to us here at normies_like_us. We love your feedback. We love getting messages like that. We love when you rate, review, and subscribe to the show. That helps it out a lot. And hit up the YouTube as well. Jacob's putting up good videos there.
Absolutely. You
That's
can see
right.
what color our backgrounds are. Sometimes it changes.
See our-
It's like a little treat.
Mine doesn't. Theirs do. Track
That's
it.
right.
It's great.
We love colored lights, and you can see our beautiful faces
That's
while we
right.
talk.
Absolutely.
right.
Be
And
what
the owners of
drinks we're
those
drinking.
beautiful faces are your hosts, who we've been. I'm what's a good Colin mushroom? I don't know. Colin
Oh.
fungi, I guess.
Oh, dang it. I was trying to think of a named one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What are
I'll just go to
named
mitochondria.
mushrooms?
Lion's
There,
mane,
it's good.
portobello,
Portobello's good.
yeah,
Shiitake.
shiitake, enoki.
All right. Call it Colin Bello. There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Colin Bella Ramsey. And this
Oh,
is Joel Cub.
That's
like it.
great.
Thank you, normies, for watching.
Bye.
All right.
I'm not a good guy.
bye.
You're my daughter, though.